And we'd like to welcome you guys back to our Less of a Man podcast. This is episode 5. Is it 5?
Yep.
Episode 5. We are getting there, y'all.
Yeah, these are flying by really fast, man. So, of course, like we do with every episode, we want to start with our mental health check-in. So, EJ.
Oh, wow, you got it right. So, things are good. I feel good. We just had a whole almost 2-hour conversation about things that were completely unrelated to the topic, so that always is good. This week's kind of crazy. This weekend's been kind of crazy, especially working at Starbucks. So many examples of white privilege that pissed me off this weekend. But other than that, I'm doing great.
Yeah, and what people don't know is like literally we bullshit for about over an hour about just different stuff, and I could create like numerous episodes about our just random conversations of what we're having. But to go back, Char, what's your mental health?
I was having a great week until 2 hours ago. Edward made me feel some kind of way about my friendship with people, but other than that, I'm doing good. And I did say Edward intentionally, so just let you know.
It was EJ, but he's just
I'm
upset
not calling
today.
him EJ today.
Okay.
All right, so Char's mad at EJ, just for everybody.
Edward's my alter ego.
Yeah, Edward's the alter ego,
Yeah.
the one that we're mad at. So, Raw, how was your mental health this morning?
Everything was good, and had a week off, and then started back working yesterday, and it's really long and tired. I'm extremely tired, and Edward called me an entitled asshole, so now we're here again.
No, everyone called you that, not just me. Like
No,
literally.
he spearheaded the action.
Did I spearhead
I
it?
wouldn't
Didn't
say-
you start it
I
off?
wouldn't say entitled.
He
I
is.
didn't say anything else. So
He is entitled.
Yeah.
But you agreed that you were entitled.
And now it's just
Now,
EJ.
but the funny thing, as soon as he gets in front of people, he wants to show up, but he agreed that he was entitled. So, with my mental health check-in, I want to do with my mental health, because I've had a pretty good week. I want to do a special shout-out to all the network streaming services that are pandering to black people.
oh wow.
Because I've been watching Smart Guy, Sister, Moesha,
Moesha.
Girlfriends is about to come on,
Mhm.
One-on-One, Half and Half. Like, even I think it was on Netflix, I saw Prison Song was on Netflix. Yeah. And that might have been Hulu, but it was like literally Prison Song should never leave the BET realm. Like it should.
You gotta sit down and watch Prison Song.
Huh?
You watch Prison Song?
Yes, I watch Prison Song all the
wow.
time almost every time I get on BET.
That's hilarious.
I watch it, and I just thought it was interesting. Now, I would, as an adult, I'm fine to not watch it, but I just find it interesting that I had the option to watch it again. And the last thing I want to say is, now that I have Raw is here, Raw is our resident New Yorker. I'm, of course, from Stone Mountain, Georgia. So T.I. has brought up again about 50 Cent with the versus matches. I just want to get you on record. If they do their versus, who will win? And I just want record, you a New Yorker, I just want you to tell the truth in front of everybody.
I think it'll be a very close battle. But I gotta go with 50.
You are a liar. You are
I mean,
such a liar.
I
think
think
I
that
man.
yeah,
Like,
You are such a liar.
I think that the
were pretty good, bro.
I think that if you look at it that way, because if the Billboard is the one, are they the ones that run the verses? Like
No,
they had the. Do they do the?
I thought Apple
I think
does
the
it.
review. Billboard does the review.
does the review?
Every time,
Okay,
yeah.
and then they say who won.
Right.
People, but I feel like they're so different.
Right.
Like their rap style and what they rap
Right.
about is so different.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think T.I. would wash 50 Cent. Would wash him.
I don't know about
I went to
wash.
college.
Would
I went
wash
to college
50
on
Cent.
50 Cent years, man.
Yeah.
But I think that if you want to talk about
Yeah.
context
Yeah.
and ability, yeah, it would be definitely T.I. all day.
So
if
I
you want to
have a
talk about like hits, it's definitely 50 Cent has the most
You
hits.
get past the first album, you good.
Yeah, I have memory with 50 Cent.
You good.
I got a question.
Uh-huh.
Who do you think should go against Anthony Hamilton?
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good one.
I was literally
That's
having
a
this
different-
conversation
I
just
love
now.
it.
There's a lot of people.
Um,
Tank can go against him.
No.
John
No.
Legend can go against
It's
him.
different.
They're different
what's the
styles.
guy?
though.
I can't think of
Music
his
Soul
name.
Child
That
can go against him.
D'Angelo?
must be nice. Who song? What was that?
Oh, that's what's his name?
Life Jennings.
Like Jennings. I
Jennings
think
could
like
go
Jennings
against
could go
him.
against him.
Yeah.
Because they were thinking about putting him and Anthony Hamilton against each other.
Oh, they did?
They were thinking about it.
Oh, wow.
Because
Nice that I guessed that.
Somebody put it out there. It was like Life Jennings and Anthony Hamilton. And I was
You
like,
know what?
really though? Like
Eric
Because
Benet could go against
Like,
him.
didn't have
Yeah.
deep cuts.
No,
Yeah.
because I think of the context of their music. I
Yeah.
think that would those two, because you got to have kind of similar artists
Right.
to go against each
Right.
other. So that's immediate. I thought Life Jennings
You just said Eric Benet, so I can see Eric Benet doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
against Anthony Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's very, like, Anthony Hamilton's way more known than Eric Benet, only because of the type of music. Like, for a period of time, Anthony Hamilton was, like, what was in. So he was
Yeah.
featured in a lot of different things that were out and, like, in the mainstream, and then Eric Benet is kind of in the background.
Right. So have y'all been watching the verses
I watched the last one with
Brandy and Mom?
Yeah. So,
Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah. You know, I'm an R&B person, so that's kind of up my alley as far as watching that. So
I didn't see that one, but I did
Yeah.
see Snoop and
Snoop and
DMX.
D. I missed both of
That was
those.
good.
I watched Jadakiss and Fabulous. I saw 2 Chainz and Rick Ross. Cause I thought Rick Ross was gonna just wash the floor with 2
Nah,
Chainz, but
you
then
know,
when he played, I was like, oh
Yeah, you
snap!
realize how many songs 2 Chainz really was on.
Yeah, it was on.
Yeah.
It was on. So
now when you say
I watched Jill Scott and Erica Badu.
That
a good
was
one.
great.
Oh, that was a good
awesome.
one.
They
Yes.
both have
Yeah.
such good music.
what were you saying, Sean?
I guess maybe I don't know 2 Chainz music that much. So he have like good cuts, deep cuts, or does he have like actual mainstream music? That
He has a lot
he has
of
both.
mainstream.
He has both,
It's a
though.
lot.
Yeah.
He has both. I mean, you gotta understand, he's featured in a lot of songs too,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
And I watched Ludacris and Nelly. That was the first one I watched.
That one was kind of rough because Nelly couldn't get his
Yeah,
Wi-Fi together.
but
so,
Ludacris
yeah.
wiped the floor
Yeah,
with
but
Nelly.
Ludacris killed that one by far.
Wiped the floor. I don't think that T.I. and 50 Cent will ever happen because I don't think 50 Cent wants to do it. Because it seems like 50 Cent just want to tell jokes on Instagram, but he don't actually want to do it.
Because he's a
Yeah.
punk.
I agree. I think he's scared to go against T.I., who I think, because T.I. wants to go against a New Yorker. I thought about this, and I think the perfect New Yorker for him to go against is Fat Joe.
Fat Joe. Oh.
Fat Joe. If you think about Fat Joe's hits,
Yeah, he got some hits.
Fat
He has
Joe,
so many hits.
he has so many, and I would love to see a Fat Joe versus T.I.
That seemed like a good battle.
I can see that. I was thinking more like Jadakiss, but
Yeah, because he's already went. Jadakiss already went.
who do you win?
He went against Fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
Who won
Fat
that
Joe,
one?
I probably would have
Jadakiss
picked
won.
Fat Joe
Really?
against T.I. though. That's a
Kiss got
really
a lot
different.
of hits. But
No, and because Jadakiss kept it street records, he didn't let Fabulous go into the female records
Yeah.
thing. So that's how Jadakiss can keep up
But
with
I don't know
Fab.
how well the female records do in these verses because
They don't do.
Nelly that's why Nelly lost because
Yeah,
when you go back and listen to his music now in comparison to when you listen to it then, they're like,
Right.
hey, was this really that good?
because when you see battles, you want to hear these amped up records to
Right.
make you excited, and the street records more do that than the actual girl record. That's why the R&B ones I tune in, but I kind of check out
Yeah.
because they're not as like the rappers. They make you like it's nostalgia, it brings you back to that moment,
right.
and
That's why I felt like the Snoop and DMX one was really
I
good.
hate that I missed that one.
All the more because you listen to a lot of DMX music, everything is really hype.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff like
that
that.
was the time. That was the time.
Yeah, what I thought, again, you guys know I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I listened to T.I. and Fabulous podcast, and what I thought was interesting, what they said was, and I believe I might have said this in a different podcast as well, is that how the view of families have changed in hip-hop culture. Like back then, families wasn't prevalent. You didn't know DMX was married.
Yeah.
You didn't know Snoop Dogg was married.
Mhm.
And that kind of blends of how we view society now. So because we thought they weren't married and they would have all these songs about how many different girls and stuff, we thought that's how we should grow up.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So now we're just, and I was actually talking to my father-in-law last night about it, and I said that's why I feel like black families are so far behind, because our view of family, we're just now seeing people marry kids happily, and that is something to kind of strive for. So our upbringing. Go ahead.
Well, I think it happened way before that. I mean, because families were prevalent back when you think of the 50s and 60s, but then of course we had the crack epidemic and
tore our families up.
And then tore people apart, and then with welfare, that you can't have a father present in the house in order for you to be able to get the funds. That started to kind of break down. But then, of course, what you said with rapping, they wanted to show someone who was available.
Yeah, who was always single.
Always single, yeah.
And you got to look at kids looking up to that.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking that having families and having a wife wasn't cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was always about who can
get the most chicks.
Yeah. And then we have, I'm sure, the same as y'all, but we would sit there and compare, like, who would, like, when we go to the clubs as kids, and who would get the most dances, who would get the most numbers. Like, all this stuff, it was always we would compete, and we would, of course, most of us were lying. I mean, we didn't we didn't know what we were talking about, but it made me think about so
The Wood all over again.
Oh, The Wood, yeah. And I actually watched The Wood the other day, and I was like, it's funny how we used to act. So again, when I watched like Sister and Smart Guy, like how they dressed, how we acted back then, it's very interesting.
But that's actually an interesting question, because how many of y'all would actually go back to those childhood friends as adults and ask them, so were you really doing something the way you said?
No, because I know you was lying.
You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of interesting. That
it's like unspoken now. You know, you look at each other like, bro, I know you was lying.
I know you was lying. It's no need for us to even speak about it.
Yeah.
So for now, I have a son on the way, and it made me think about our upbringing, and it made me think about how do I teach him when we were taught to be, men was so toxic. So the toxic masculinity that we were taught was so kind of wrong that I wanted to talk to you guys today, because I was really thinking about how do I teach him how to be a man? What even is a man now for these days? So I wanted to start off with the question, growing up, what were y'all examples of men growing up? So who wants to start? Nobody's jumping to start. You want me to go first then? So my example of men was really, it was hard because not a lot of people in my neighborhood had their dads. If they did, we had our stepdads. So I had my stepdad growing up, but he was a drug abuser. He was abusive to us. So he was my definition, and also my cousin who I looked up to. My cousin's 10 years older than me. And I looked up to him because he was the guy first of all, he went to jail. He got out, and he had a Tahoe. He was listening to rap music. Like, he was the first person I listened to DMX and all this stuff. The Locks, the Rough Riders. He was blasting that at first. And I just thought he was like the coolest guy. And that's who I kind of wanted to be. I wanted to be that, because he was kind of like a rapper to me. Oh, wow. Like, in a sense. And that's who I kind of
that is interesting.
Looked up to. Yeah, so and then, of course, in the neighborhood, we were all the same age, so they couldn't influence us, but it was mostly, those were kind of the two examples that I saw growing up. So what were y'all examples?
Yeah, I'll go first. I guess second. There's two that pop in my head when I think about it. Of course, I didn't grow up with my father, but I grew up with my grandfather being very present in my life, where every Saturday morning we would go to the marina and bail out a boat, water out of a boat that would never actually get a chance to actually ride in. Pretty much everywhere I went, I was with him. You know, he tried to teach me how to fish. He brought me to work when I needed to pick me up from work. So he was just that constant present that was actually there in my life. And then I think about the neighborhood father that my friend who acted, his father was there. His name, I guess I could call it, we call him Papo, but his name is Clarence Rocks. And what he would do with all the kids in the community is that we would go to his house and he'll show us how to like build stuff and show us how to use a hammer, how to use a saw. So I just remember that being such a big part of, I guess, my childhood. Just those two men who actually made a presence to kind of like let you know that this is the role you're supposed to play, I guess, in your household. So that's the two I remember growing up.
So you had somebody who was actually teaching you like the roles of man.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, because my grandfather, he worked and he just was that person. He was the provider, and that's just what I knew in terms of what you're supposed to do in terms of taking care of your household. He was that example to me.
So I had the same thing in a sense. Mm-hmm. My stepdad, he started teaching me stuff of what a man should do. The only problem is he was actually preparing for him walking out of my family. Oh, wow. So like he was preparing me to be the man of the household, so he felt better about when he was going to walk out.
That's some good planning. I mean, ironically.
That's good planning. Yeah, so he would teach me how to fix a car or budget, like all that stuff. But yeah, he was preparing to walk out on the family. So you know.
I don't know how to receive that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
So for me, it would be my uncle and his father. His father's is not my biological grandfather, but I did call him my grandfather. But so my uncle's 14 years older than me, and so we used to go everywhere together. He would literally take me everywhere with him. So for the most part, when like people didn't realize that we were like, actually he was my uncle, I was his nephew. It was more like we were brothers. But he would take me everywhere with him. He would try to teach me how to do stuff. He taught me how to drive. He taught me how to fix certain things. And then also his father was around. He would also take me places. He taught me how to swim. You know, he would take me to the beach all the time. He would take me to the park. He would just teach me how to do stuff. So those were the two people that were really two males in my life at that really molded me towards the person I am today. Because you know my father was in and out of my life, so those were the two I really had.
Okay. What about you, EJ?
So at different points in life, I had different, examples. I will say when I was really young, my dad was not really around often. We all know he was in the military, and so he would get deployed, and instead of moving us around, he would go take the tours. So it would be like 1 or 2 years, and he'd be gone and he'd be back with us, which I'm appreciative for. But he wasn't there. So when I was very young, you guys are probably going to laugh, I honestly thought that Michael Jackson
What?
was my dad. And the reason why he was gone was because he was touring and making all this music.
I'm gonna pack this.
So it's funny when I think of it now, but as a kid, I don't know why. Like,
so you hold on. So you envisioned
Michael Jackson as
yes.
The legend, the GOAT.
The GOAT.
The GOAT
Yes,
era.
I have no idea. But as a kid, that's
Thriller.
I was obsessed with Michael Jackson, his music, his artistry, his ability to kind of like mesmerize you.
So you just made him your dad.
So it literally in my mind, okay, my dad's leaving, and this is what he's turning into.
Oh wow!
So
metamorph into Michael Jackson.
yes,
This is so interesting.
and I don't know why in my mind. So that was a really big piece for me, I think. And I think also the thing about it is that my voice has always been high. So there was a connection. Michael Jackson's voice was always high.
Right.
So as a kid, I was always taunted about it. And even as an adult, I'm still taunted about it. But then moving forward, living with my grandfather in Tennessee, he taught me a lot of stuff about carpentry work, about working with your hands.
Mm-hmm.
He was a carpenter. He was a farmer. That my grandma and my granddad, they both had several different farms, and they actually had a lot of land at one point. And so they would grow crops, and I learned about that as well. And then later on, I started to build a connection with my dad as he would tour less and we would be more in a stable place. And we would spend time. It was always awkward, and I think it's still always awkward only because it wasn't something that happened all the time. So he would talk to me about things. He would teach me about, when you're dating females at the time, this is what you do. This is how you interact. They should be on this side. You should always try to protect them. And just basically that's kind of how I ended up getting, my idea or basis for masculinity.
I feel like I don't have the degrees to unpack what you just told me.
I really would love to get deep into that.
Yeah, that's probably something we gotta do offline because I was just shocked.
I just want to know why you think Michael Jackson.
I have no idea. I think I idolized him.
Yeah,
just like any other, kid at that time.
And I think you felt kind of a kinship to him because you're talking about the similar and maybe voices that you felt like, oh, we're similar. That this is where the loins that I came from.
I'm a kid, y'all.
What you mean? You were giving us that little piece of nugget that we can definitely clown you on.
Oh yeah.
But I already told y'all this before.
Oh no, we're gonna get these jokes off. We're gonna get these. So with all that, how do y'all, with y'all experiences, what y'all saw as an example of a male, how do y'all feel like growing up, I know it's different from now, but growing up, how did you feel like a man was? Like, what was the definition of a man with the kind of examples that y'all got? Well, go ahead.
For me, present is the biggest one. Just being there, and just leading is the things I think about. Because when I think of my grandfather, he was always there. He was always present. He was always doing what he needed to do to make sure that the family was taken care of. And like I said, he really everywhere he was, I was. I was the first grandchild out of all of my cousins, and really the first grandson for a minute. So we definitely had that time together as far as being a grandson and grandfather together. So he just was always a presence, and there's a comfort that I have with him, even to the point he was even the one who gave me the other half of my money to buy Shanita's engagement ring. That's the type of relationship we have. So yeah, he just was. When I think of a man, someone who is just there and making sure that his family is taken care of.
So that's interesting because I would probably never say present. Like, and I'm talking about me growing up. None of us had our dad, so it was like for me, it was just like the man kind of just paid the bills and made shit happen. Like that's why I tell my wife all the time. I was like, I have one job only, and that's to make shit happen.
Oh wow!
And
he just loves saying that.
Yeah, I do. But present, that's interesting because growing up now, of course, I would think that growing up I didn't because none of us had our dads to even that come into fruition. Because I don't even know kind of how do I feel like the definition of a man was. But I feel like all of us in the neighborhood was just trying to figure out kind of as we went along. So even though my stepdad was there, we weren't cool. We didn't have a relationship. We didn't I don't even know if he generally even liked us, like me and my brother. Wow. I think that we were a package deal with my mom, but I don't. That's a really hard question, and I wrote this question down, and I don't even know if I can answer it. But Ron, I'm gonna let you take a stab at it.
I'm doing pretty much the same thing as Moore's present. I mean, I know I didn't really have my father in and out of my life, but I mean, he was a father to my brother and sister.
He was a father to somebody.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, but I mean, just seeing my uncle with his father, having his father around, and I guess another thing I would say would be like a teacher, teaching you how to do things, making sure you're able to fend for yourself as you get older, and have some type of independency. So I guess that would be my answer.
No, that's real, because I want to tell, and I hope, Char, you're okay with me telling this story, because this involves me too. It ain't just about you. But we had a meeting at Char's house, like all of us. It wasn't a meeting; it was a hangout with our wives was there and girlfriends and whatever, and we were barbecuing, and we were all standing around the barbecue, and we all figured out that none of us know how to barbecue. None of us know, and we all are sitting there struggling, trying to figure out how to do it. And we realized that we did not have dads in our lives to teach us how to barbecue. We came to that realization.
Wait, I wasn't there.
No, you weren't there. But it was all of us there. We were literally all standing around the grill, trying to figure this thing out, and this was like last year, and so this is not even like.
And might I add, this is not your heavy duty.
No, it's the cold one.
It was just a plain cold grill.
Basic grill.
Yeah. Oh my gosh!
And we didn't know.
What is the irony that I can't barbecue? That my dad taught me how to barbecue.
I didn't have my dad.
You came to the party, but I think you should have later. But at that point,
we figured it out because Charles had to come in and barbecue for us because we didn't know. And the irony of it is, my dad can barbecue, like he can barbecue, and because he wasn't in my life growing up, that's just not a skill that
he got taught.
That I got taught. But go ahead. That's why when you said teacher, it brought me to that story, and I just had to share that story.
That was hilarious.
Go ahead, Edward.
So I think that what I learned as far as characteristics, that you are the head of the house, right? I think that comes from teaching not only parents, but also when we look at our religious backgrounds, they're the head of the house, they're controlled, they're strong, they're stoic, right? So you don't show emotion, you don't let things phase you, you kind of let it roll off your back. I don't think that there's anything else in that. Basically, anything that kind of keeps you like fortified as a strong figure,
right,
provider, right,
right,
protector,
right.
like all of those things are things that have been taught to us and to me specifically about what a man is or attributes that are associated with men.
No, that's real because especially I think the stoic and you don't show emotion is kind of like the main thing I always thought. Like you're not supposed. That's why I always say you make shit happen. Nobody cares. If you heard the phrase, "I don't care about the labor pain, show me the baby." Like nobody care about all that extra.
I feel like
stuff.
you would say that to Lori too.
Yeah.
No, I've said it, but no, I haven't said it now because she's actually pregnant. But so I can't say it now. But yes, I have said it. Nobody cares about your struggle. They just want to
let me hold the baby.
Yeah, get the solution from it. But I'm interested. I just wrote a note down. And how did they introduce like being a gentleman? Did they teach y'all that, like gentlemen, or like maybe the sex talk? Cause they all know my sex talk story. So I'm gonna just tell my sex talk story. And my stepdad. So he's in the car, and I was like in middle school, and he picked us up from school. We headed home. And he says, he just, like, literally we get in front of the house. He stops the car, looks at me and says, have you ever ate pussy before?
Wow.
And I'm in
shock.
Yeah, I'm in middle school. I don't know what pussy is at this time. So I don't know what the correct answer is. So I'm sitting here like, yes. Like, I'm trying to figure it out.
That's
what the answer is
for a 6-year-old. I'm a sixth grader.
Yeah, that's like what 11, 10,
yeah,
12,
yeah,
like somewhere.
Yeah. So I'm confused, and it turns out he was drunk and high at that time. And that's of course what I didn't know at that time. But so I go run in the house, and the funny thing is when he asked me, he never explained what it was. So it's still I don't know what he's talking about. So the first thing I do being a kid is I run to my mom like, yo, he just asked me have I ever ate pussy before, and I don't even know what that means. So now my mom is, and not only we found out that he's drunk, so she's even more pissed that he's driving us while drunk. So that was my sex talk. I don't think I've ever been like taught gentleman. And again, I have a bunch of stories. My story about being like gentleman, like I didn't know pumping gas was like gentleman behavior. And so until I saw on Facebook somebody clown somebody for actually, like, they were in the car while their girlfriend was pumping gas, and then Facebook was clowning them. And I was like, I didn't know that was that was being gentleman. So I wondered, like,
chivalry.
Who taught y'all? Yeah, the chivalry.
Yeah.
Who taught y'all? Like, did y'all have those talks?
Okay. I always love the story because I think about it now in hindsight. I never got the sex talk with my grandfather or really any man. My mom took it upon herself to, I guess, provide information about that. So one day I was at home and my mom literally gave me a book about men and what happens down there and all that stuff and what happens. And yeah, that literally was my, I guess, introduction to
What happens down there? I'm sorry.
I can't deal with that. So he's still saying down there as a grown adult.
I said that in a very sarcastic, from a sarcastic perspective, what I was saying. So that was my introduction. But I think, to your point, in terms of being well, come on, y'all stop.
I'm just like,
I was trying to be funny, but I guess y'all
it is funny, like down there.
You didn't catch my drift there. But
you know why we didn't catch it? Because it's so normal for you.
That's exactly how we would expected you to.
That's what we expected to say. Down there.
So, but in terms of being a gentleman, it's almost like I think I got through osmosis in a sense because I saw how my grandfather treated my grandmother, and it's almost like I found out how to be a gentleman by looking at what not to do based off the people I did see around in my life. So, and then also, I really got the idea of how to be a gentleman, and more importantly, how to be truly a man from my experience working at Lockheed in New Orleans. And I think about the guys I hung out with there. Shout out to Willie Howard, Gary Jackson, and Cedric Love in particular, because what we used to do is they'll take, like, after work, we'll go out, go to the bar, chill, and have some drinks. And in terms of hanging out with men and hearing conversations that married men had about their wives, it's really the first exposure I've got as far as how men interact with each other, and more importantly, how men treat their women in a sense. So I think those two, that was really where I truly, although it wasn't a formal conversation, it was informal in the sense they kind of gave me an idea of how a man should treat a woman, and also how a man should interact with other men in a sense. So that kind of was my, I guess, lessons that I got early on. So
for me, I learned chivalry and how to treat a woman from my mother.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and then I also got a sex talk from my mom, which really wasn't a sex talk. She just called me when I was 16 and said, "Hey, are you having sex?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Okay, here's some condoms."
She did very short PSA.
She was like, "I would have preferred you to wait, but oh well."
It's too late now.
Too late now. So,
point of no return.
Yeah. So I mean, she was really the one that really taught me how to be chivalrous and all that stuff, and what I should do: opening doors for women, holding doors for women, pumping gas.
I didn't know.
I
didn't know.
So
Putting women on the inside.
Yeah.
I knew about that.
I learned that.
I just didn't know pumping gas.
So you let the people that you were dating pump gas when you were in the car with them? Is that what?
Yeah.
See, okay, that's what I was
Wow.
going to ask you, because no one ever told me per se that a guy's supposed to do that. It was just something that I just absorbed and assumed that was the role of a guy.
So you probably observed it happen.
No, you probably observed it. Like, even, like, my dad, when I started being around my dad, I just noticed that he's never driving. He's always on the passenger seat, and I feel weird. I feel weird about that, and I guess that's masculinity, that we're always the driver. But it was something about that always turned me off, that he was always the passenger. But yeah, before I would have it was any female. It wasn't even when I'm in a relationship. Any female who was pumping gas, I just let them pump gas. I'm just like, yes, they call it pump gas. So now what I do is, it don't matter who I'm with the female, I automatically do it because I'm not going to be a mean.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my whole.
So your motivation is not to be a
Not to be a mean. That's the only reason I do it.
Okay.
I don't want to be a mean.
not because it's the right thing to do. I just don't want to be a mean.
Listen, man, this is 2020. Women are independent. They have the ability to pump their gas. I just don't want to be a mean.
Okay.
That's what I just don't want to be a mean.
Okay.
So, and now I got a pregnant wife, so I definitely don't want to be a mean.
Interesting.
So that's my motivation. But we'll go ahead, EJ.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I got nothing else.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think mine is very similar to Roz. I learned a lot from my sisters and my mother, because I have 4 sisters. I had no brothers at all, and my dad gone. That leaves me with, I live with 2 of my sisters. One would come to visit, and then I live with my mom. So I always had women around me. So they were always teaching me. Not only were they teaching me, but I was observing how my older sisters, how men were treating them, or at that time, I guess, boys were treating them, and I saw what not to do. So I kind of did the opposite. I also got to see a lot in church, how pastors, treated the first lady as far as like escorting them and opening doors. My dad did a lot to tell me about, how, a woman should always be on the inside when you're walking. I would always see my dad opening doors. So a lot was observed. There were some education. I would say probably the biggest component of me understanding what should be done is from observation.
Yeah, I think I agree. And I think a lot of my teaching is funny from sitcoms. A lot of my teaching is from like how to deal with family and interact with families. Like I watch Fresh Prince, Cosby Show,
Family Matters,
My Wife and Kids. Like because I knew how my family was, I knew this wasn't normal, and I always viewed sitcoms as this is how family should interact. So a lot of mine was based off that because there wasn't really somebody there to teach me. But
Edward just actually brought up something that I didn't really think about for myself. Church actually does play a big role in establishing that male-female, out of a good or bad. It does make that,
right.
The man is supposed to do this, that, and that. And I even think about that in terms of how it was in church, in terms of how they in a sense, defined what a man role was as well.
So that's where I'm different from y'all. I didn't grow up in church. So, again, it's another experience that I didn't get. But the reason we're having this conversation because of the term toxic masculinity. And I pulled up the Urban Dictionary. I didn't even realize I did that. But it describes as narrow, repressive type of ideas about the male gender role that defines masculinity as exaggerated masculine traits like being violent, unemotional, sexual, aggressive, and so forth. Also suggests that men who act too emotional or maybe aren't violent enough or don't do all of the things that real men do can get their man card taken away. So the reason to having this conversation is because we could talk about kind of the stuff positive, but we've also got taught some very negative views of what a man is, and that's kind of what I want to base our kind of conversation off of. So like, I was one day a story. Of course, y'all gonna learn that I love telling stories. Is that when Suicide Squad movie came out, I wanted to go see Suicide. A whole bunch of us, all male, were going to see Suicide Squad movie, and the family I was around at the time made fun of me. They're like, "You going to the movies with all males?" And then they, of course, made jokes of gay jokes or whatever. But for them, their view of what a male was very toxic. They felt like because I worked with computers and software, that wasn't a manly job. They felt like because I wasn't aggressive and like wanted to fight all the time, I wasn't manly enough. And these are the kind of things that we are taught as kids. We're taught to not cry, put in your emotions. If something like, even to the point like, if you get in a fight, like you better win, and if you lose, you go back out and you fight. Like, so I wanted to discuss, because again, I have a son on the way, and I'm just thinking about all the stuff I need to teach him, but all the stuff that we were taught that was kind of really effed up. So I wanted to talk about what are some of the toxic masculinity traits that us as a culture are being taught that we probably need to kind of change. Who wants to take this?
So my first one would probably be something that I'm not good at either. Talking about feelings.
And talking about your feelings.
Yeah, I mean, you always thought that we always hold our feelings in. We don't talk about them. You don't cry. You don't do this. So I think that would be a toxic trait. It should be a point where should be comfortable enough to talk about your feelings with whoever and get it out so that you can build and grow from that in that instance, instead of just holding it in and staying angry or frustrated or just trying to move on. Because then that builds up resentment and anger and trust issues that you may not see at that moment, but becomes prevalent further down in life.
Yeah, and it also comes out a certain way. And then what people don't realize, if you're like 10 years old going with these emotions, and then you're 20 years old going with these same emotions that you haven't dealt with, then you're 30-year-old going with these same emotions, and 40-year-old going with these same emotions that you're dealing with, and you have not learned to deal with it. Because my cousin called me one day, and he was like, he had a conversation with me, and let's go back to our therapy conversation. He started to go to therapy because I talked openly about it. And he was like, I couldn't go to therapy when I was younger. That was like the whole neighborhood called me a bitch. I was like, there was no way I could go.
Oh, wow.
And so again, that's what you're saying about the toxic masculinity, about opening up more about our emotions. Anybody else wants to jump in?
Yeah, I think that that comes about when we have, I feel like it's for men to try to reach these unattainable standards for black men in general, our community. So like social respect, right? So like when we go above and beyond to be respected socially around our peers and as the public, that helps to create that.
Yeah, respect is a big issue where we feel like we're disrespected, that we got to go to great lengths to get our respect.
And maintain that control and power over, how we look and are represented. Also the physical strength thing, right? So like, it's almost like what did you say? I think you said something last week, like you feel like first of all, you said dear, but
oh yeah.
But like, this mentality of like, okay, I need to have the bigger balls, right?
Yeah, so like rams coming together to see who's the dominant of the two.
So that when we get to a sense where we always have to kind of show our dominance, I think the sexual potency is another thing. That like basically like the more sex you have, the more women you had sex with, then you're more manly in that way. And I think that those things are all things that are taught and help to kind of create that culture of toxic masculinity.
What about you, Sean?
I guess for me, I am 6'4" with the voice of Mike Tyson.
Yeah, I thought you were about to say I'm 6'4" with the voice of like a 5'2" nigga. That's what I thought you were gonna say. That's what I was waiting to bring it there.
So even just the appearance, there's certain appearances, certain how you speak, how you sound, the stuff you talk about. I'm also a person who probably can cry at a moment's notice.
So we know.
Yeah,
we know that.
So just being able, just showing your emotions and having that can definitely come across as soft and stuff like that. Even growing up, even though in saying that, I definitely grew up in the environment where if you fought, you finished up a fight, or even to the point that if you're taught to not be afraid. I could think many times where I had a fight with somebody. I remember specifically when I was in high school, I got jumped by these two guys. And my intention was to catch them one by one that day, and I actually did that. I went each one by one, and kind of handled my business with both those guys until everything was kind of that I felt like I had that control again. So like y'all say, even having that moment where you gotta have dominance and you feel like you're in control of things. Just another example. I feel of toxic masculinity. So
yeah, and I think the aggression one is a huge one because I remember when I was a kid. Like one of my biggest fights that I got, I did not want to fight. I didn't want to, but you feel like you have to. like, man, what are they gonna say about you?
Yeah.
If you don't, and then we talk about, if I tell my folks I got into a fight, well, did you win? No. Well, then you need to go back out there. Like to say that now, it's like you need to go back out there. And physical harm you or someone else.
Indeed.
Yeah, for no reason at all. But that's the
code, man.
That's the code, and that's what kind of scares me. Is like knowing that I have a son on the way, and like having to teach him demand traits. Because I feel like our stuff has to kind of change, and to sit here and to go on like we've been doing is going to be like extremely dangerous, very extremely dangerous. So one of the ones that I really like recently in the news that I kind of zeroed in on was like the Tory Lanez situation with shooting Megan Thee Stallion, and whatever happened, argument or whatever happened in that prompted him to shoot her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever it don't matter what they were arguing about, but to deal with it in the way that he did. And I'm like, a lot of us are kind of being taught that. Like, what do y'all feel about that?
Yes, being taught not to speak up about your emotions in a healthy way. So you have these repressed feelings and usually kind of like brings you to boil in anger. So then the only thing that you can do is to lash out. And this is not to say that the way that he responded was validated, but it's to give an explanation, right? Because we also have women that are going to look at this podcast actually looking at the demographics. It's almost half men and women.
Oh, nice.
So like it's not to say that, but it's just to give an idea and perspective, right? So you don't deal with any emotions that you ever had as a kid, as an adult, now in your older years, right? 30s, 40s,
right.
And now you are faced in a situation where you can't really feel like you can like verbally express yourself. The only thing you're gonna go to is what? Violence.
Yeah.
Right. So then.
So that's the only thing that's okay.
Exactly. That's the only behavior or only emotion you're allowed to kind of like portray.
And not only portray it, it's almost like we throw gasoline on the fire by encouraging it as well.
Right.
So like
That's true.
that's probably the worst part of it. Not only that we don't express our feelings, but then when we express it in a violent way, it's not like it's something that's frowned upon. It's more about that's what you were supposed to do, and you handled your business.
The right way.
That's what we do to each other, which is definitely dangerous, like you said, Darrell, in today's time, because we're not fighting fair anymore.
No.
When we were growing up, is you put the stick on the person's shoulder, you knock it off, you fight, the fight's over, you're done. But some of these kids are like, they
come around and shoot you.
They're shooting folks, you know what I'm saying? So that's to one, not be able to deal with your emotions, and then the way they're dealing with emotions in terms of let's not even fight about it, let's just turn the guns. It's just a whole nother beasts to even deal with nowadays. So I can't imagine being a father raising a son in today's time. So I can imagine how nervous that makes you.
So I think Edward hit touch on something where it's like, he lashed out. He didn't know how to use words or whatever, can get in an argument and argue it out or talk it out and get to a point where you can resolve it. Whereas the reason why being so publicized or he's being, getting such backlash is because he did to a female. Now, if it was a male,
if it was a male, we wouldn't be even talking about this.
Right. But then that's also a problem. Like, at what point are you able to get in an argument with somebody else and then be able to talk it out and not having to resort to violence? I mean, I'm guilty of that to myself. Like, if I feel I'm disrespected or I get to that level where I'm that upset, I feel like I got to put my hands on you, and that's something that I'm trying to work on. But with that, it's like, how do we get to that point where we're able to have disagreements and not go violent?
Right.
So, and that's something we all got to work on.
That's an interesting point because you're right. If it was a male,
if it was another male,
we wouldn't even be having this conversation
at all.
And the fact is that so it's not only violence towards females, because that's a huge topic, but it's just violence period that automatically to go there, man, and to feel like there's no other way to express what you're going to say.
But then I think also, I guess with that, it's almost like you cross the line because we're taught to protect and make sure that everyone, like we're taking care of our families and women and stuff like that. But if they act in a certain manner that makes us feel like we're out of control of a situation.
Less than a man.
Less than a man. Thank you for we react in a way that goes against what our intentions are. So now we're no longer in our role of protecting women. We're now hurting them.
Yeah.
But I think the overall arching thing that we're taught is dominance.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go against that. That's the number one thing is dominance.
Yeah.
So then after that, then it's protecting women. But you have to establish the dominance first before you can even get to protecting women.
It's almost like
it's like a whole triad of just craziness.
The person who like beats his wife or girlfriend, and then the next day he's going out and buying her roses and candies and stuff like that. It's such a vicious cycle that I hurt you because you challenged my manhood, but now I need to be a man again and make you feel safe again. So let me do these things to make you feel safe, and it's just really a vicious cycle.
Like I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
It was you just made me upset, and you talk like that.
Yeah, and just a shout out to the women. If he hit you once and you don't correct it, most likely he'll do it again.
Well, correcting is leaving. It's as soon as it turns violent, in both sides.
Yeah.
It should be separated. So we were talking about more that masculinity and males are kind of put in this gender box. Do you guys think it's kind of like important for us to break that box? Like, should I guess gender roles and gender identity be more kind of blended? How do y'all feel about that?
I want to answer that because that's actually my situation now, and I think it's important to break those walls and that box is because life happens. You know what I'm saying? You just don't know what's going to happen to you, and I think in today's time, there needs to be a situation, or it's ideal for you to be with a partner where in the event that something does happen, they can pick up the pieces, or in the moment that they need to. And I think that's the direction we need to start moving toward as far as our society, and not necessarily making men feel like it's all on them to make sure that the household stays together, because it should be a partnership. But at the same time, every partnership has a leader that has to make sure that everything stays in order. And I think just from that perspective, it needs to be someone who's leading in an ideal household is typically the man. But at the same time, if stuff happens, it needs to be decided as a couple. It needs to be decided as a team to make sure that everything kind of stays in order.
I agree with what you're saying. I think you said some things that's interesting. First, you basically said, yes, we should break out these gender boxes, but you should find somebody to break out the gender boxes with. So somebody that you can transfer power, in a sense, to each person.
Yeah, because, and I say that because although we're taught to be the leaders, in certain cases, women are taught to be submissive in a sense, or that they have to rely on a man in order to be able to get by. So based off, in a sense, they are taught those ideas because as an overall society, we are taught the man is to lead. Right. And the woman should be able to rely on a man in order to provide.
So I view that very differently. Okay. I view it. I think the man should be the head of the household. You guys know I'm very traditional in my thinking, but in saying that, just because I'm the head of the household does not mean I rule with an iron fist. That means everything I do is for the betterment of the household. So basically, everything I do is for the rest of the house. It ain't for me.
Yeah.
It's for the rest of the household, and women being submissive doesn't mean that they're a slave or they follow everything I do.
That's what I meant, is kind of in terms of what you said. In terms of
yeah. So my wife walks side by side with me.
Mm-hmm.
So when she submits, she's looking at me to be the lead, because basically when I'm saying I'm the head of the household, that means the fail or the success on their household solely falls on me. I have told guys, since y'all both grew up in church, I have told God that I am the head, and if it fails, this is my fault.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let me step back. Okay, so when we say head of household, what is that definition? Because different people have different.
People have the wrong definition. They have the wrong one.
So that's why I was like, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to interject for a little bit, but so back to you were saying, where it's like you feel like sometimes the roles have to be reversed.
Correct.
And you were saying, that the roles are there, but it's a more of an equal role that you're trying to have.
Absolutely.
So my thing that is, I agree with both of y'all. Whereas it comes to a point where sometimes as a man, you do have to step back. To be a great leader, sometimes you have to learn to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side of that, also, it's something that we all have to do together. Like sometimes you have to put ego aside, and then we have to, sometimes you have, as women, some women have to understand that sometimes you aren't always going to be able to do everything that they need you to do at that moment, and they need to stand by you and help you through that time instead of belittling you or trying to feel less than a man.
Yeah.
Right.
And then on your
nice plug.
Stupid. And then on your side, I get it. Like you always want that partner that's going to walk next to you. You don't want to have somebody that's totally submissive. You don't want a yes man. Nobody wants a yes man.
Nobody wants one.
Everybody believes they want to, but until you get a yes man, you be like, this is boring. I don't want to do this anymore. You want that person that's going to challenge you and keep you up to par and make you want to be better for yourself. And then that's why I feel like gender roles is something that it shouldn't always be defined that you have to be this person in the household or whatever. It should always be that you both come together, you talk about what your goals are and aspects are in life, where you want to go, and you make that move. I'm gonna let you, Darrell. I like it as where I want to be the one that provides for my family. I want to be the one that's there and make everything done. And like, as I strive to do that, I work hard. I work long hours just to be that person, so that my household doesn't want for anything.
Yeah, but also, let me cut you off, and I'm gonna let you get in. I'm sorry. Providing also does not mean like you're the financial breadwinner. It doesn't mean that. It means that everything you do. So even if I'm making less, I'm still making every move to make sure my household is successful. But go ahead.
And then that's also I'm saying, like,
we'll get you out there.
And also, to your point of financial. So like, for me, I might be the financial leader in my house, but my fiance is the emotional leader.
Right. That's deep. That's real deep.
Where it comes like, I may be the one to make more money and pay the bills, but she's the one that makes sure I'm straight. She makes sure she's straight emotionally. Right. She talks to me every day. She tries to make me talk about my feelings. Tries. She talks about hers, and she builds that gap, whereas she leads in one aspect, I lead another.
Absolutely.
But we both walk together. So that's just how I feel it should run, but everybody's different.
That's deep, man.
And when you guys say that, I want you guys to understand that what you guys described is not really the traditional norm. While you might think that you're traditional in your mindset of thinking head of household, the traditional sense of head of household is honestly almost like dictatorship, right?
Okay.
You guys have which I think is awesome. I think being head of household is a mindset, right?
Right.
And the mindset of it is that you're inclusive. And I think that's the thing that in traditional gender roles, you're not allowed to alter those roles. And what you guys have done is alter those roles and fit them into a more cohesive type of structure that allows the woman to also become a part of the equation, right? Because before they're not a part of the equation. You make the decisions. If you decide that that's where the money's going to go, that's where the money's going to go, and the woman doesn't get a say-so. But what you guys are doing is you're actually including them in those decisions, and they're able to have a voice, which is in the past they didn't. So I think that's very interesting that you guys all have a perspective that you say is very traditional, but in a sense it's not.
Well, let me say, I'm gonna let you go, Char, right after this. I think we saying traditional because this is what traditional is supposed to be. People interpreted head of the household or submissive wrong. They don't. They do submissive as a slave and head of a household as a dictator, and that's not true. That's not even how the Bible says it's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Like to sit there, like soon as so we took Adam and Eve. Soon as God was like, when they bit the apple, God went to Adam and said, "Yo, I told you, don't bite the apple. Like, why are you?" And what Adam did wrong was not that he bit the apple. The first thing he did was said, "The woman you gave me did it." But the problem what he should have did was, "This is my household. This is my responsibility.
Yeah.
I take blame for that."
Yeah.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Well, no, I agree with everything you just said. While you say that, I would agree with Edward in terms of how the church view head of household is completely different from how we do. Because it really is that strict. The man does this, the woman is supposed to do this, that, and that. And at the end of the day, the man dictates what the woman should do. And when I sit back and think about it, it's really a horrible structure because the women are really taught to take the back seat, and that's just what I don't think we realize how many households operate like that.
Right.
And I guess I would be curious to see how many households operate how we think in comparison to what we just.
The most successful ones.
Yeah.
How we think.
Yeah, right. But then that kind of goes. That's an extension of why men probably can't communicate, because when stuff goes wrong or something happens to you that allows you to not be able to hold a position that you are used to holding, and you can't mentally
process
that because you're less of a man if you're not making sure that you're providing financially for your family or making sure that everything is in order. So like and we need to change that mentality, because men are not going to be able to survive mentally if you keep that concept that they continue to encourage. So
yeah, and this discussion is all about a deviation from that traditional norm, right? So deviants are not perceived to be masculine, right? So if a person has the mentality of a church, of religion, where man is the household, your mindset is a deviation from that, which emasculates you. And I think that's one of the biggest conversations that we are now having now, is that people feel like specifically Black men are being emasculated because of how they're being portrayed in society and in the media, how they're acting, how they're portrayed, period, as breaking through the social norms, and it's kind of like not okay. So I would like to understand what you guys feel, that deviation is doing. Do you feel like it's like socially engineering us? I've had a couple conversations with people who feel like there's an agenda to socially engineer that our image is only either this or that, right? There's no in between.
No in between.
So either you're going to be a thug, violent, you're going to be toxic, or you're going to be gay.
Okay. Oh.
No, that's interesting, but I also think it's what you consume. So I tell my daughter all the time, because she loves YouTube, and I said, there's food and there's poison. So you could sit here and do all this poison that does nothing to your growth, but you need to also do stuff that gives you food. So I would also kind of ask them, what kind of medium are you partaking in to only show those two things? Because I just told you I grew up watching sitcoms. So I grew up watching like families that, and that's one thing when we was talking, when me and my wife were watching like Sister and Smart Guy, we was like, we don't see a lot of families. Like Blackish is kind of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's kind of it, and we don't see how the family structure. I don't personally think there's an engineer. Even if there is, like media doesn't control me enough to say, oh, because they're only showing thugs that I have to be one.
Right.
Yeah, but that might be you, but
Yeah,
for most instances, especially younger generation, everything is based off of social media, reality
Especially
TV,
now.
and the media. So if you're not seeing that structure like that we grew up on with Family Matters,
They don't have what we had.
Parenthood, all sister, all that
Right.
stuff, you're gonna think that this is the norm. Fast money, fast life, being Instagram model, being famous, is this the life that you want to live? So it's going to be hard where we try to engineer the backtrack of the years that we've lost.
Right.
With and trying to get back to that family dynamic.
Yeah, but this is where I go, and I think Charles kind of say, this is why you need to be smart about who you lay down with and who you start a family with. Because my answer to you, Raw, would be like, well, parents, do your damn job. This is your job.
Right.
Like, I pick and choose what my daughter and what my son partake in. Like, yes, it's fine that you want to do these. She wants to watch Roblox on YouTube. That's fine. But also, you need to get something that's going to help you stimulate and grow. So when we watch Blackish, when I watch Grownish or Mixedish, because those really the only shows we have, I sit there and I have a conversation with. I love Mixedish because me and her can sit here and have a conversation about. So when they're talking about black girls' hair or identity, me and her can have that conversation. So my answer to that question with you, Raw, is parents need to do their damn job.
But my rebuttal to you is, if you don't have that family structure, how can that family do that?
No, and that's
how can the parents do their job?
That's true.
When the parents are pretty much not much older than the kids that they're having now, and they're watching the same thing that their kids are watching and having the same mentality, how can they do their job and try to build
when their kids themselves
try to build it in the way that we would like it to be, we want to be perceived as, but all they know is what they saw as well.
Right.
And growing up in a household that was broken, we need to get back to the aspect where we start building households and having 2-parent families. But it's hard.
Well, I mean, that's traditional in a sense, but also I don't know if we really answered Abby's question in terms of, because our society typically have a binary perception of what a man is. Like either he's a thug, or if he does not act in a particular manner, he's perceived as either soft or gay, or say those words.
Right.
And the question is why can't it be a blend of all of those characteristics in terms of defining what a man is? Because if we think of the conversations we just had, if you really was to define manly amongst the 4 of us, Ed would be considered the most manly because of the sense of him being able to build things, him being able to
barbecue.
You know what I'm saying?
I can work on cars.
Huh?
He can. Well, my brakes almost failed a couple times.
No, they did not. You stopped. You had a complete stop. You were good.
I had the most manliest job here.
What?
Thank you very much.
Here we go. But I mean, I guess if you talk about if you talk about maybe activities, like being able to do activities, yes. But if you look at what society looks at, I would be the least man. At the same time, because my voice isn't deep, right? I like to style myself and get dressed, right? I like to do interior design. I like men, right? Those are different things that people equate with the feminine. Like you can't be masculine and do those things.
So that's a question I asked. So why is it such a binary look at the definition of what it considers?
Well, I think what Edward was trying to say was that people feel like there's a agenda and they feel so attacked that you have to stick to this guideline, and because everything else is an attack on us, and the problem is we need to be okay with not being as strong as we think we are, and that's in every aspect.
Right.
We need to be okay with being like emotionally weak and be able to rely not only on our significant others but our friends, our family members, and we need to be able to show that it's okay, because it's stressful kind of being a male sometimes, and really like our feelings get put to the back burner. Like nobody asks me how I'm doing. Like every time my family or anybody reaches out, they all ask about Taylor. Of course, she's pregnant, and then they'll ask about Kylie. Nobody asks how I'm doing. So those
Sometimes
are the things.
I do.
No, you do, but for the most part, I'm just saying for the most part, nobody asks how I'm doing.
Raw definitely doesn't ask that.
No, Raw never asks.
No, I don't ask that.
Yeah, but to your point, it's because men are expected to always have it together.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if they have it together, and that was my biggest frustration with my family, is that because I was a person known as having it together, when I didn't have it together, no one really actually reached out to ask, "Are you okay?"
Or support you.
Or support me.
Right.
Or even know how to support me if I tell you what's wrong with me.
Right.
So
And I think that's a great call out, because on the other side of the spectrum is, right, so we have all of this pressure and all of this, responsibility put on a man to be able to be this standard of the traditional sense of what masculine is, but they have no support on the back end a lot of times.
Right.
And I'm not saying that there aren't women that support men. I'm not saying that black women don't support black men, even when they should not. They do, but in general, we don't have that support. So, like, if a man is not financially stable, they're broke. They're back in the day. They're a scrub. They're not trying to do anything without looking at any of the other barriers that are in society that would impede their ability to grow. Right? If a man isn't all about being sexually promiscuous, I'm not attracted to him because he's not this. If a man isn't as aggressive as we'd like to see them, if they don't have that street thug appeal, I don't want that. Like, you're too smart. You're too focused on what you want. So it's like
the one I love when I was a kid. You're the type that you marry.
Right. And so this is a part of the problem as well. Is like you don't get that support to kind of like build up, like from where you are to where your potential is.
Right. So back to what you were saying originally when you said about the agenda. So I was just sitting here thinking, and I was thinking about Dwayne Wade and his son.
Right.
And that's like one of the biggest things that show what you were exactly talking about. Whereas he's supporting his son in his decision of what he wants to be and become, whatever. And then everybody is just, not everybody, but some people are attacking him. Saying
a lot of people are.
Yeah, but the problem is people always bring up Boosie, and they always do, but Boosie ain't nobody's supporting Boosie either. Like it's either like somebody said, I'd rather have a Boosie than a Dwayne Wade. Why do I have to have either? You could be in the middle. Like, and that I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
like,
right.
why do we have to be on any one of the
so
spectrums?
like that's what I'm saying. Like in that aspect, that's when they start saying, "Oh, everybody's trying to push an agenda. They're trying to demasculate, trying to taint the black image, of especially the male image." And I'm like, why can't we not support our children?
Because at the end of the day, he's just supporting his child.
Right.
At the end of the day.
That's the thing, and that's why we start coming back about home. If we don't support our kids and teach them something healthy, then what justice are we doing to them in the future? We're just basically doing the same thing as repeating toxic masculinity. Because then you're gonna shame him, make him feel some type of way. He grows up to be what you perceive him to want him to be, and then he's not happy.
Yeah.
So how does that help? We've got to come to a point where we can support and help at the same time, and still feel like we're still being masculine, and that there's not an agenda trying to destroy the image of a black man.
But also, I think we still trying to figure out for ourselves what a black man is supposed to be, because we still don't know what we're supposed to be. If you talk to any other black man, it's always a different opinion of what you're supposed to be. And the sad part about it, no one's saying you're wrong. It's just saying that if someone doesn't fit your perception of what it should be, doesn't mean that they're wrong. And that's the problem that we need to accept, that the fact of you being born a man is enough to say that this is how that you're a man. You shouldn't have to do certain things or act a certain way to define who you are, and that's what we need to move away from in terms of all of these. You have to do this, and that, and that's how you teach your kids that. Like to your point, what you were saying, just be comfortable in who you are, and that is enough to define who you're supposed to be.
Yeah, and what the Dwayne Wade situation is, what people need to realize, I mean, you can agree or don't, it's your free will to whatever you want, but at the end of the day, he's just supporting his kid.
Yeah.
So, can we at least agree with that?
We agree.
He's supporting his child. Yeah. I want to close it out because we're going to get to the end. I want to ask you my last question. What do you guys do that would have your man card by society culturally taken away?
I like to be held.
You like to be held? Like, what are you saying, like spoon?
Of course.
You like to be the little spoon?
Sometimes I like to be
the little
small.
spoon is cool.
Apparently not.
Well,
I had this whole discussion at work where I said I like to be held. Sometimes I like to be the little spoon, and then everybody made fun of me.
No, because
most of the males made fun of me, and all the females were on my side. Because it's like so.
Okay.
No, I'll probably make fun of you too, even though I do it.
I'm fine. I don't care. so that right there is like, so why can I not want to be held? Why can I?
Because it's a vulnerable, like.
Sometimes I want to feel secure. Like I want somebody to hold me.
No, I get it because my wife's pregnant, so it's easier. And even before that, we would switch which one. So I would.
Sometimes I like to be turned into your direction in terms of me sleeping. So
right. It could be that simple.
It really that simple. Like I sleep the opposite direction from you. So sometimes me having to hold you is just not comfortable for me because now I'm sleeping in the wrong direction that I normally.
Hey man, you asked me what would be my one.
Yeah,
thing.
What would be your thing?
Okay, that is my one.
No, I appreciate that.
So,
what would be your one thing?
I think that I go
burden off. Release that.
Yeah, release it, man. Well, I mean, you probably got a lot, so you probably don't have all that time to.
Let's see. I like musicals.
Do you really?
Yes, I do.
I just thought it was bullshit.
I really do love musicals.
You really didn't know you like musicals?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I just thought he was joking.
No, I really love musicals. I really do.
Okay.
And I go get facials and stuff and microdermabrasions and things like that. So that's a little.
I did not know.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That was funny.
That
was funny.
I did not know this.
Yeah, no, I knew he did facials, but it's just ammunition when I get these jokes off.
Those two things that I'm sorry. I feel vulnerable now.
Shut up.
I need somebody to hold me.
Well, maybe you can hold Raw.
No,
since he likes me.
Wow.
You gonna get these jokes off.
We should be comfortable with this because it's like the toxic masculinity kind of like
On to EJ.
I honestly, there's like a plethora. I don't really even know where to begin. What would you guys say? I guess what would you say?
That will get your man card taken?
Yeah.
I think
each one of y'all, because I know you're.
I think talking to our significant others.
Okay.
Having a relationship with them.
Are you just mad about that? Or
I'm very mad about that.
Okay.
I don't hide that.
You have individual towels in your bathroom that we can use to wipe our hands every time we want to wash our hands.
I feel like that's really okay.
No, the caddy in the tub.
The caddy
would be mine. That little caddy in the
Okay.
tub would be mine.
The pillows.
The mermaid pillows?
The mermaid. Okay, I love the mermaid.
No, Charlotte loved them. No, Charlotte loved
and
them.
Yeah. And Keegan would love that mermaid pillow.
Yeah, I like
If you ask me my opinion, I said the mermaid. Mermaid pillows.
The mermaid pillows would be that one thing?
Yeah.
I would say the elephant, the big picture of the elephant.
Okay, that's
How would that be?
Oh, because it was like a rainbow. It was like multicolored.
I think it's decorations.
My decoration.
That's
Probably
my. That's what I mean. Like you're very decorative.
Decor.
Yeah, decor. That's what I meant. Not necessarily.
I never thought that would. I just think you do a lot, but that's who you are in your decorations.
Right.
But he decorates a lot more than the typical male.
No, he does.
Will decorate.
So I guess.
Yeah.
I guess so.
So I know we're closing out the podcast, but I just wanted to make one statement just about the people in this room in general.
Aww.
And I think it's a positive statement, and I think that I've become very comfortable with these men here.
After Rocky start.
And after Rocky Start, because I did not like Ronan at all, and I did not like Darrell that much at all.
I was about to say Raw is very
You
unlikable.
like me? Okay.
But I want to say this because I've seen the growth and I would love to see this more in society, right? So when I first came into this group of people, their way of speaking, their thought processes, their mindset would come off very homophobic, very like chauvinistic, very like actually toxic.
I can see that. I can see that.
I disagree.
And as they got to know me as a person, and I think sometimes it's difficult to talk about being a black man and then talk about being a black man that likes men, right? And a lot of heterosexual males are uncomfortable with that. And they really took the time to kind of understand me and ask questions, to get to know me, to figure out how that, how they felt about it. They expressed how they felt about it. I got to give them some education on a lot of different aspects. Now, Darrell literally asks me questions all the time. What does this mean? I'm like,
I want to know.
He wants to know. And I think it's that mindset is that what we need in general for us to move past this whole toxic masculinity thing.
Right.
We need to be curious. We need to educate each other. And I'm not saying we need to train people to be gay. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to understand each other and be able to have those conversations so we can understand the next person. And that's the thing that I feel like has grown the most in this group. And I'm very proud of y'all for just kind of like not doing what I would expect y'all to do. It's just kind of like,
but
she'd be like,
I'll say this for you, Edward, and this is a lesson for not only Edward, but all of us who are not a part of someone else's culture, that you were open to let us grow. So like if we were to say something that could have came across as homophobic, you didn't get angry, you corrected us and actually told us the right thing to do and say. And I think that's something that we as black folks struggle in terms of our responsibility of being able to educate others as well. So I think the fact that you were open to actually not be offended, but more so listen to what we're trying to understand about you, makes us better people as well. And I think that's something that other people can learn from each other, to make sure that we are open to explain our culture to others. So
yeah. So in closing, I think I didn't do mine right. Well, we'll get my card. I think.
I think your nails would get your card. Your nails are so long.
Mine are long too, though.
Mine are long too.
Well, they've been long because of COVID.
Yeah,
I haven't.
But your nails are always long.
I just let it grow before I cut them.
Well, your nails are not all long, Rodden. Your nails, you only have a crack nail.
No, mine are long too.
Well, I didn't even think about that. like I was thinking of my will to be metrosexual.
Oh God!
I think that to be metrosexual.
He just wants to be metrosexual so bad.
He wants to be.
I want to be like. Why can't I be that?
Because Darrell, you don't dress in the manner that defines someone to be.
And I'm offended by that.
He gets so mad.
I'm gonna throw myself on the bus too. I have a plethora of different hair balm, hair serums, stuff to wash my face.
I don't have none of that.
But that's like a Creole thing, so it's not really like.
But I think that's a start to try to become metrosexual.
So is Char metrosexual?
No, I'm not.
I know he's not. He bet not. He bet not be, and I'm right.
I take more care of myself than y'all realize. First of all,
The closest to metrosexual is actually raw.
Only because I
can see that, but I think I'm not that far off from him.
But you don't dress it. You don't dress it.
I don't dress it.
You don't dress the part.
have the.
I have slim fit pants.
You have
That's what
That's it. I have slipped
You have a sweater vest.
I don't have a sweater. Like, stop telling people that I
loves
don't
sweater
have
vests.
sweater vests.
You love sweater vests.
I wear hoodies all the time.
I can find a picture. The last picture we took at a party, I think you were in a sweater vest.
No, that's probably true.
Yeah.
But that you talking about when we were? Yes,
that was
that's
sweater
true.
vest.
But that doesn't mean I wear a sweater because I have one.
He's wearing sweater vests all the time.
Would that take my man card away?
Well, right now, yeah, I believe so, because it's so out of date.
I don't wear sweater vests.
I think I like it's very Cosby-esque, the sweaters that you
Anyway, mine was metrosexual, and I'm still on the verge of somehow
Attaining.
becoming that. Yes, I'm still on the verge. So that's it for today's episode. Let us know how you guys think in the comments, and like always, we appreciate all the feedback we got. We got great feedback. So keep them up. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about. Let us know about this conversation about toxic masculinity. Any parting words, guys? No? Out?
Nope.
All right.
Good.
Peace.
Peace.